This is a dramatized story inspired by real debt situations. For educational and entertainment purposes only. Not legal or financial advice.
$79,000. That was the number I never said out loud. Not to my husband, not to my parents, not even to myself after a while. I was 36 years old, a licensed practical nurse, and I was drowning in silence. At 36, I had a steady job, a husband who trusted me, 2 kids in elementary school, and a secret that was eating me alive. What happened over the next 8 months changed everything, and not in the way I expected. My name is Dana, and this is how it all fell apart, and how I finally found a way through. I went back to school at 28. My youngest was barely walking. I had this idea, this plan, that getting my LPN certification, then bridging to an RN, would set our family up for good. My husband Marcus worked construction. We weren't broke, but we weren't comfortable either. I figured the degree was the investment, the ticket. I took out federal student loans for the LPN program. Then I enrolled in the RN Bridge program and took out more. Then the Bridge program got defunded mid-semester, and the credits didn't fully transfer, so I started over at a different school. More loans. Then Marcus got hurt on a job site, a torn rotator cuff, and was out of work for 4 months. We put $11,000 in living expenses on 3 different credit cards just to survive that stretch. By the time I passed my RN boards at 32, I had $61,000 in federal student loan debt and $18,000 in credit card debt. $79,000 total, but I told myself it was fine. I was going to be an RN. I'd pay it off in a few years, except I couldn't get full-time RN hours right away. I started as a per diem nurse at $28 an hour. Good money, but unpredictable. Some weeks I worked 50 hours, some weeks 12. Marcus was back on a job, but his shoulder was never fully right, and the work was slower. Our mortgage was $1,640 a month. Car payments were $490. Groceries, utilities, kids' activities. Everything added up to a number that was always just a little more than what we had. I deferred my student loans, then deferred again, then enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan where my minimum payment was $214 a month, but the interest was accruing at $380 a month. I was going backward. Every single month, my balance was getting bigger, not smaller, and I never told Marcus. I handled all the bills online. I'd been doing it for years. It was just how we worked. He trusted me completely, so when the loan statements came, I deleted the emails. When the credit card bills arrived in the mail, I grabbed them first. I told myself I'd figure it out before he ever needed to know. By March of last year, I was 36 years old, and our household debt, including the mortgage, was over $280,000. But that $79,000 student loan and credit card number? Marcus had no idea it existed. Then I got a letter from a collection agency. One of the credit cards, a $6,200 balance I'd been paying minimums on, had been sold to a debt collector after I missed 3 payments during a slow work month. The letter said I owed $7,100 now, with fees. They were threatening to pursue a judgment. I stood in the driveway holding that letter for probably 5 minutes. The kids were inside watching TV. Marcus was in the garage, and I just stood there in the cold, feeling the whole thing start to collapse. I couldn't sleep that night. Or the night after. I'd lie in bed next to Marcus listening to him breathe and run the numbers in my head over and over. $79,000 in student loans and credit cards. $218 going out every month that wasn't even covering interest. A collection agency now involved. My credit score, I checked it on my phone under the covers like I was hiding contraband, had dropped to 591, down from 684 just 18 months earlier. My FICO score dropping like that scared me more than almost anything else because I knew what it meant. It meant we couldn't refinance. We couldn't get a personal loan to consolidate. Every door that might have been an exit was quietly closing. I started making mistakes. The first one, I called one of those debt settlement companies I saw advertised online, the ones that say they'll negotiate your debt down to pennies on the dollar. They told me to stop making payments on my credit cards, all of them, and instead put that money into a dedicated savings account they managed. They said, after several months, once the accounts were delinquent enough, they'd negotiate lump sum settlements. What they didn't explain clearly was that I'd be paying them a fee, 25% of whatever debt they settled, and that in the meantime, my credit score would crater, and that creditors don't have to negotiate, they can sue you instead. I stopped making payments for 2 months. My credit score dropped to 559. I got 4 new collection letters, and then I paid the settlement company $350 in enrollment fees before I finally read the fine print and pulled out. The second mistake, I took a $4,000 cash advance from my last open credit card to make a lump sum payment on the collection account. The cash advance interest rate was 99%. I put $4,000 on a card to pay off $7,100 and still owed $3,100 to the collector because they wouldn't accept a partial settlement. So now I had a new $4,000 balance at nearly 30% interest, and the original debt was still there. The third mistake, and the one I'm most ashamed of, I withdrew $3,500 from my 401k through a hardship distribution. I told myself I'd pay it back. I didn't understand at the time that you can't pay back a hardship withdrawal. It's not a loan, it's gone, and I'd owe income taxes on it plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty, a bill I hadn't even gotten yet. I was 36 years old, a registered nurse, and I was making every financial mistake in the book. Not because I was reckless, because I was terrified and operating alone. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a phone call that changed my life or a friend who swooped in with answers. It was 2:17 in the morning, 3 weeks after I took that 401k withdrawal, sitting on the bathroom floor with my phone because I didn't want to wake Marcus. I was searching how to get out of student loan debt for the 100th time when I found an article from a nonprofit credit counseling agency, one certified through the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't promising to erase my debt. It just listed the actual options. And for the first time, I read them like a person who had to make a real decision, not like a person looking for a miracle. I made an appointment for the next morning. A phone consultation. Free. The counselor's name was Renee. She had a calm, no-judgment voice, and she asked me to pull up every account, every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot on my lunch break and read her everything. Every number I'd been hiding from my husband, every account, every mistake. She didn't flinch. She just said, "Okay, let's look at what you're actually working with." Here is what Renee helped me understand. And I want to walk through this carefully because I think a lot of people are in a fog when it comes to what the actual options are. First, she explained that my federal student loans and my credit card debt were 2 completely different animals and needed to be handled separately. For the student loans, $61,000 federal, she said that income-driven repayment was the right framework, but I needed to reapply and recertify my income accurately because my payment should actually be lower than $214 given our household situation. She also mentioned Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF, which applies to nurses working at nonprofit hospitals. I'd been working at a nonprofit health system for 4 years and had no idea. If I was on the right repayment plan and certified my employment annually, any remaining federal loan balance after 120 qualifying payments, 10 years, would be forgiven tax-free. I had potentially been qualifying all along and hadn't enrolled properly. That one piece of information almost made me cry in the parking lot. For the credit card debt, the $18,000 split across 4 accounts, she walked me through 3 real options. Option 1, a debt management plan, or DMP, through the credit counseling agency. Under a DMP, they negotiate with creditors to reduce your interest rates, sometimes significantly, and you make one consolidated monthly payment to the agency. which distributes it to your creditors. It doesn't hurt your credit score the way settlement does. It takes 3 to 5 years. You have to close the enrolled accounts, which temporarily affects your FICO score, but it's not catastrophic. This costs a small monthly fee, usually $25 to $50. Option 2. Debt settlement. She was honest with me. Debt settlement can reduce what you owe, but the downsides are real. Major credit score damage, potential tax liability on forgiven amounts, and no guarantee creditors will negotiate. It's a gamble, and she said most people who try it on their own end up in worse shape. Option 3. Bankruptcy. She said I shouldn't be afraid of that word, but I needed to understand what it actually meant before ruling it in or out. She recommended I consult with a bankruptcy attorney. Many offer free initial consultations to get a real picture. So I did. The following week, I found a bankruptcy attorney through the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys directory. The consultation was free. I brought every number. He explained Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13 in plain language. Chapter 7 is a liquidation bankruptcy. Most unsecured debts, like credit cards, get discharged, typically within 3 to 6 months, but you have to pass a means test based on your income. With Marcus working, and me as an RN, we were likely above the median income threshold for our state, which complicated Chapter 7 eligibility. Chapter 13 is a reorganization bankruptcy. You keep your assets, including your house, and you repay a portion of your debts over a 3 to 5 year plan based on your disposable income. It's longer, but it's structured. It stops collection calls immediately through an automatic stay. It can catch up mortgage arrears if you're behind. And critically, he said, Chapter 13 does not discharge federal student loans. Almost nothing does, outside of extreme hardship circumstances, but it could address the credit card debt and give my budget breathing room to properly manage the student loans separately. He also told me something I needed to hear. Filing bankruptcy is a legal tool. It exists because life happens. Medical crises, job losses, income gaps, decisions made under pressure. It's not a moral failure. Now, and I want to be very clear here, I am not a financial advisor or a legal professional. What worked for my situation may not be right for yours. Please consult a licensed credit counselor or bankruptcy attorney before making any decisions about your own debt. These are complex choices with long-term consequences, and you deserve real guidance, not just a YouTube video. What I decided, based on the counseling and the consultation, I enrolled in the debt management plan for the credit card debt. I re-enrolled my federal student loans in an income-driven repayment plan, specifically SAVE, the newest plan, and submitted my PSLF employment certification forms going back 4 years. I did not file bankruptcy, but I understood it as an option if things changed, and I scheduled a call with my 401k plan administrator to understand exactly what I'd owe at tax time for that withdrawal so it wouldn't ambush me. And then, the hardest part, I told Marcus. We sat at the kitchen table after the kids were in bed. I had everything printed out, all the accounts, all the balances, all the mistakes. I slid the papers across the table and I told him everything. The loans, the credit cards, the collection agency, the settlement company I'd briefly used, the 401k withdrawal. All of it. He was quiet for a long time. He looked at the papers. Then he looked at me. He said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Because I thought I could fix it myself, and then I couldn't." He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. He said, "We'll figure it out." That was 8 months ago. I'm not going to tell you everything is fixed because it isn't. We're in month 8 of a 48-month debt management plan. My FICO score is back up to 623 and climbing slowly. The collection account was resolved through the DMP. My student loan payment under the SAVE plan is $187 a month, which actually covers the interest now given the new plan structure. I've submitted 4 years of PSLF employment certifications, and I'm officially on track. 6 more years of qualifying payments, and I'll have the federal loan balance forgiven. That $79,000 secret doesn't live in my chest anymore. I sleep through the night. Marcus and I look at the budget together now every Sunday. Nothing hidden, nothing managed alone. It's not a fairy tale ending, it's just a path forward. And for the first time in years, I can see it. If you're carrying a number you haven't said out loud, a balance you're hiding, a debt you're hoping will somehow disappear, I want you to hear this. Saying the number out loud is the first step, not to a collection agency, not to a debt settlement company making promises on TV, to a licensed nonprofit credit counselor, to a bankruptcy attorney for a free consultation, or even just to someone you trust. The number doesn't get smaller in the dark, but it does get smaller when you start dealing with it. Get the free debt checklist linked in the description below. It walks you through exactly how to organize your accounts, understand your options, and figure out your first step. Link is right below this video. And if this story helped you, subscribe. There are more stories here from real people figuring out how to get through real financial situations.